there was a series of satanic church arsons in the early 90s, starting with the Fantoft Stave Church in 1992, which was devoured by flames. Hi guys, Christopher Norse Rain. Today's video will be the first installment, an introduction in a series of videos about stave churches, Norwegian stave churches. Regardless of what religious beliefs you might have, if you're interested in Viking history, stave churches are definitely worth looking into, particularly the oldest ones, as these were starting to pop up during the end of the Viking Age in the 11th century. And it's been argued that heritage-wise, the stave churches are equally important as the Viking ships. Now, the stave churches were quite common in North Europe, and back in the day, we estimate that we had about 1,000 stave churches in Norway alone, most of them being built between 1150 and 1350. But in 1349, 1350, the building of new stave churches came to a sudden halt. What stopped the building process in the mid-1300s? I'll tell you in a second, but in case you're new to the channel, I'm posting new Viking-related content every Sunday. I'm looking at Viking history, Norse mythology, reporting on Viking news in the media, looking at Viking culture today, and also traveling to historical places from the Viking Age. If you enjoy that kind of content, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment for the algorithm. It helps me out making more of this kind of content, and of course, I really do appreciate the support. The building process came to a sudden halt in the mid-1300s as Norway and the rest of Europe was hit by the Black Death. This plague was the mother of all pandemics and wiped out half of Europe's population in 3 years' time, and in Norway, 2/3 of the population died, going from 300,000 to 100,000. And the population didn't get back to what it was before the plague until the early 1600s. The sudden drop in population, well over 200 years of lacking maintenance, and the Reformation by Martin Luther resulted in most of the stave churches being lost during this period. By 1650, the number of churches had dwindled from about 1,000 to 270. At the beginning of the 1800s, there were about 70 left. About 40 of them were torn down during this century, the last one being destroyed in the early 1880s. After this, all remaining stave churches were spared, much thanks to the Society for the Preservation of Ancient Monuments, who actually bought and operate several stave churches today. However, we did lose one stave church also after 1880. There was a series of satanic church arsons in the early 90s, starting with the Fantoft Stave Church in 1992, which was devoured by flames. It's believed that Varg Vikernes, a central figure in the Norwegian black metal scene, was behind the arson, but he was never convicted of this. He was, however, convicted of 3 other church arsons and the murder of his former bandmate. He got sentenced to 21 years, which is the maximum penalty here in Norway. A reconstruction of Fantoft Stave Church was built after the fire, this time with a security fence. In Europe, there's actually no more stave churches still standing, except for the 28 here in Norway. There is also one in Sweden, in Hedared, and also, funnily enough, one in Poland, which was relocated there from Norway. Several of the stave churches are actually in use even today, although some of them have become museums. So my plan is to travel to the different churches, bring my camera, bring my drone, and then get some sweet footage. A lot of them are actually placed in very scenic spots. The surroundings are actually quite beautiful. Also, many of the old portals are especially interesting as the artwork is the same style as you would find during the Viking Age. The biggest stave church today is Heddal, and the smallest one is Undredal. They differ a lot in size, but they are built by the same building technique, and that is essentially what makes a stave church a stave church. The stave churches were built with wood, specifically pine with a high content of resin, and you would get this by either girdling the trees, which is basically removing the bark, or by cutting off the top and then letting them dry out for a few years before you cut them down. The word stave comes from the Old Norse word stafr, or stav in modern Norwegian. The staves, or the poles, are the load-bearing posts of the building. In the older buildings, the posts would be placed directly in the ground. A later upgraded technique would be to place big stones underneath the posts to prevent rot and to substantially extend their lifespan. And in later churches, the posts were set on a raised sill frame resting on stone foundations. This is the stave church in its most mature form. It's also common to group the stave churches into two categories. Type A, single nave churches which do not have freestanding posts, and Type B, with freestanding posts and a raised roof. As of yet, I haven't really decided whether or not to visit all of the stave churches in Norway, and the one in Poland also for that matter. A lot of the old ones are going to be interesting to visit, obviously, like Urnes, which is the oldest one. It's believed to be from 1130. This is definitely on my list. But then you have newer ones also, like Kvarnes, which is from 1630. So this wouldn't really be that interesting from a historical point of view, at least. Also, what's worth mentioning is that a lot of them have been modernized quite a few times over the years, and some of them don't really feature that much left from the original building. And if that's the case, they won't be that interesting either, unfortunately. But there's at least 10 of them that's definitely worth visiting. How about you guys? Have you ever visited one of the stave churches? And in that case, would you recommend it? Let me know in the comments below. Wrapping it up there. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.